Halo has long been one of the most diverse games on the market. Even after 343 took over and started shipping games without core features or just removing them entirely, Halo's feature set was still pretty damn impressive when compared to most other AAA games. Its greatest strength was that it offered something for just about everyone. Halo was never about one specific feature. Axeman made this great analogy in one of his videos that Halo was almost like a monument that was being propped up by all the different sub-communities that its diverse feature set had helped to create. But over the years, more and more of these features started to get neglected and forgotten, and their sub-communities just drifted away. And it seems as though the next casualty of this is going to be Halo's biggest and most important feature: campaign. In the lead up to Halo Infinite, we were all pretty adamant that we were on the brink of a golden age for campaign, and what we ended up getting was basically the polar opposite. Any hopes that we had of campaign DLC are just dead. It ain't happening. Joe and Paul have left, and with them went out the window any hopes of a new Halo campaign directed by Halo legends, and pretty much all of 343's campaign team were fired in January. Things were already dire, but it seems like it's only getting worse. According to Technical Halo, who are a well-known and very accurate group of Halo leakers, they can 100% confirm that nothing campaign-related is in the works right now at any stage of development. Nor are there any plans or conversations about it at 343 or other studios. Plans can change, but I wouldn't expect them to for at least a year. Yeah. Besides that absolute non-statement that 343 gave when the studio imploded in January, we've not had any official word about the future of Halo's campaign, besides recently Sketch saying, "I can't imagine Halo never getting campaign experiences again," in an Ask Me Anything. Now, no hate to Sketch here at all, I love Brian, but that statement doesn't exactly fill myself or really anybody else with any degree of confidence. The fact that the answer to the question of will Halo get campaigns again wasn't just a clear-cut, instantaneous yes is kind of concerning. Now, obviously, Halo will get campaigns again at some point in the future, but the issue is that we don't have even the slightest clue as to when that's going to be. And I also think how that statement was worded specifically is kind of indicative of 343's current attitude towards and plans for future Halo campaigns. It ain't good. The main issue here is that the consistent release schedule that Halo used to have has gone, and with it goes any degree of certainty as well. Halo always used to have a reliable, consistent 3-year release cadence. We knew that every 3 years there'd be a new Halo game, and with it would come a new campaign and the continuation of the story. Then Infinite came along and broke that with a 6-year dev cycle, which we assumed was just an anomaly because of the engine and all that stuff, but clearly it wasn't. And what we're left with is the situation that we have now, where honestly, it feels like we are as in the dark about the future of Halo as we were after Halo 5 came out, if not more so, given the degree to which the whole franchise seems to have almost imploded after Infinite came out. Halo's not about to return to a 3-year dev cycle. We have no idea when, or even if, Halo Infinite's very clearly open-ended story will get its continuation. And I say if because 343 have a rather bad habit of dropping stories before they finish them to move on to something else. And if we do end up getting yet another double dev cycle, another 6-year dev cycle, I can see him doing that again, to be honest. If you want to tell a cohesive Halo narrative that spans across multiple games, 6 years is far too long between entries, because people who played the previous entry are gonna lose interest and not all of them are gonna come over to the new game, and the people that jump in for the first time with the new game are gonna be missing all the context and the story of the previous game. One of the many reasons that Bungie's trilogy was so damn good was because it told a mostly cohesive story across 3 games with definitive beginning, middle, and endpoints. And crucially, because the gaps between each entry were equal and reasonable in length, fans knew when to expect the next entry in the story. At no point did we ever feel left in the dark. And now we're stood firmly in the pitch black. We have no idea whatsoever when or even if Infinite's campaign is going to get a continuation. And to be honest with you, by the sounds of it, I don't think 343 even know either. This neglection of the literal foundation of the entire Halo franchise is a catastrophic mistake. Now, I've made videos like this before talking about why Halo needs to be given to other developers to make spin-offs and all that stuff, but in the state that Halo and its campaign is currently in, I feel like I have to dedicate this entire video specifically to the mainline campaign. 343 is pretty much a skeleton crew now, to be honest. I mean, they've fired the entire campaign team, and it's clear that, at least for the time being, they don't really care about campaign, right? Like, they've completely tunnel-visioned on multiplayer, but for the foreseeable future. Meanwhile, the single-player market in gaming is absolutely booming. Zelda, Elden Ring, God of War, Horizon, Last of Us, Resident Evil, Dead Space, Doom, etc, etc. I could go on for hours listing hyper-successful single-player games on the market right now. And the fact that Halo isn't part of that list, the fact that Halo isn't one of the franchises looking to capitalize on this massive, humongous boom in single-player games is the most ass-backwards thing since charging for colours. Halo as a franchise was literally built on campaign. Not to diminish the role that multiplayer has had in growing Halo, because it has absolutely had a huge role, but the very foundations of everything that we love about Halo stem from the campaign, and 343 are neglecting it. So, going off what Technical Halo said, let's say that next year 343 start working on the next Halo campaign, and it'll take probably 3 or so years to make, barring any delays, which I feel like at this point are kind of inevitable. That means that the next Halo campaign, the continuation of Halo Infinite's very open-ended story, will not be releasing until 2027. And you know what? That's generous. That's assuming that the Microsoft hiring freeze is over by next year and that the world doesn't get sent into a recession in the next year, which it still could do. That generous hypothetical situation also assumes that 343 will have managed to rehire an entire campaign team by next year as well, which, to be fair, granted, because they're moving to Unreal, might be a little bit easier than last time, but still, that's very generous, and even with all those generosities included in this hypothetical scenario, we're still going to get a double dev cycle again for the next campaign. Again. Now, I have what I think could be a solution for this. It's not perfect, but it's kind of the best that we've got given the hand that we've been dealt. But before I give that solution, I just want to offer a little bit. Okay, this is quite a doomer thing to say, but I'm just going to get it out there anyway, right? If Halo had stuck to its 3-year dev cycle, obviously Infinite was an anomaly, but after Infinite, if it had gone back to a 3-year dev cycle, in about 2.5, 3 weeks from now, when the Xbox Game Showcase is going on mid-June, we would have likely gotten the first trailer/tease for Halo Infinite sequel, and I think it's fair to say that we won't be getting that next month. So anyways, doomer stuff aside, let's talk about the solution, right? It's, like I said, not perfect, but it's something, right? I am starting to believe that the way forward for Halo is to decouple campaign from multiplayer. It's no longer a necessity in the modern gaming market to release games as full feature suites with every single feature you could possibly imagine like it was 10 plus years ago. Now, as much as I absolutely hate that, there are definitely benefits to it, and I think being able to launch Halo campaigns as their own titles instead of having to ship them with multiplayer every time is one of the small benefits that comes with that. I think the bottom line is that Halo campaigns can and absolutely should release more frequently than multiplayer. I think multiplayer games are at their best when you design like a really core set of foundations and then iterate on those foundations over time, honing things that people like, removing things that people don't like or that don't work, and just continuing to chisel it down until it's the best form that it can possibly be. Multiplayer experiences, if they're liked, don't need to have their wheels redesigned every 3 to 4 years with a new release. If you build a solid foundation that people enjoy, you can continue to iterate on that, just like Counter-Strike has done, for example, for literally decades, and people will still play it. I think as well, in today's market, all the benefits of releasing a new multiplayer game or a new game with new multiplayer can just be patched into a game via a title update or a season. And I mean, we're seeing this with pretty much every major game on the market right now. Were it 10 to 15 years ago, then the changes and additions that come with new seasons in modern games would have been packaged up to release with a new game. But now, thanks to the evolution of technology and market demands, that's no longer a necessity. Campaigns, however, are a different story. Barring DLC, which is a whole different ballgame that clearly 343 and Halo as a franchise aren't interested in, you can't continue to iterate on a campaign because it needs new additions, it needs continuations and new entries. So, I think the best scenario here would be to have Halo multiplayer be this standalone, separate experience that constantly evolves over time, and then have the campaigns released maybe every 2 to 3 years as standalone single-player experiences. With this model, you could reliably pump out continuations to Halo's main story and campaign without having massive gaps in between entries, because you aren't making a whole game, you're just making a campaign. But because they would be standalone games, they'd have the marketing power of standalone games. Unlike DLC, where you don't quite have the level of marketing power for it because of the profit margins that are involved with it not being as high, so not as many people jump into the DLCs, and then not many people carry on the story all the way through. If they're marketed as standalone games, like, I don't know, example, Last of Us or something like that, then you're going to have the marketing push of a full release, and you're going to have the attention of a full release as well. They hit much broader markets than DLCs. This model would also allow you to get a lot more experimental with the campaigns that you make as well. Because you have this perpetual money-making multiplayer experience that's always there in the background, always existing, always active, always live, campaigns no longer have to do all the marketing heavy lifting for every aspect of a game. And what I mean by that is, basically, they don't have to market the multiplayer. So when you look at the ways that Halos are marketed, doesn't matter whether they've got multiplayer or not, they are always marketed through the campaign. The campaign always does all of the marketing, even for the elements of the game that have nothing to do with campaign, yet have their own profit margins. Campaign is expected to do the heavy lifting for all of that, whereas if you just released a single player only game that was just campaign, all it's doing is marketing for itself. It's not expected to market for completely different parts of the game with their own profit margins. I hope that makes sense. There's also more freedom to appeal to niches and use campaigns as almost sentiment improvers, because profit maximization obviously would still be very important, but it wouldn't be as important as if it was the main marketing driving force for a whole new game like it is now. And then the marketing itself also gets a lot easier as well, because you have the multiplayer there that you can use to market the campaign. Granted, that requires a multiplayer experience that's popular long term, which is something that 343 have never managed to pull off, but if you do manage to pull that off, and you do have that, then it's so easy to use that platform as a marketing tool for the campaign. If a new campaign releases, you can theme a season around it. You can add content from that campaign into the multiplayer. You can add multiplayer incentives for people that buy the campaign, like armor pieces and just stuff like that. In a perfect world, I wouldn't want any of this. I still want a brand new Halo game to release every 3 years, with a campaign, with a multiplayer, with all of the surrounding features that we expect, and with no item store or microtransaction bullshit. But not to go full Doomer or anything, but that ain't ever gonna happen again, at least in the short to mid-term future. Unless something radically changes with the industry, I can't see that happening for a long time, if ever. So with that in mind, I think separating Halo's campaign from its multiplayer is the best thing that we can do with the hand that we've been dealt in the current era of Halo to ensure that the campaign doesn't fall by the wayside and lose its focus in favor of multiplayer, because man, as a Halo campaign fan, we all feel it. It's not great right now, and we all thought that Infinite was going to be the light at the end of the tunnel, that after the content drought of Halo 5 and the double dev cycle of Infinite, it's like, okay, as soon as Infinite's out, we're good. We're going to get so much campaign content, it's going to be like a whole new golden era of Halo, and here we are, and it's the complete opposite. So, I don't know, man, I wanted to make a video talking about this because it's been on my mind quite a lot recently, and as more leaks / statements have come out about the future of campaign, I say statements, I should really say non-statements, I don't know, it's just got me thinking about comparing the modern kind of like Halo era to how it was back in the day when we had a new game. We knew we were going to get a new game with a new campaign every 3 years. We were going to get a new story every 3 years. We were going to get a continuation of the main story every 3 years. And now all that certainty, all that reliability is just gone out the window. And now we're once again in the dark, arguably worse than we were after Halo 5. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Let me know what you think of the idea of splitting campaign and multiplayer. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of it, but given the hand that we've been dealt, I think it's the best of a bad situation, to be quite honest with you. Obviously, what I say doesn't really matter. All that matters is whether 343 actually do it, and I don't expect them to do it based on me just talking into a camera for 10 minutes. I don't really know where I'm going with that. Let's just run the video out there, shall we? Thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Again, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments on what we discussed today. I want to give a massive thank you to all of my amazing patrons for the continued support over there, as per usual. And thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Give me 1 sec. And I'll catch you all in the next one.